Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is the security news update for December 18th, 2023, almost at the end of the year. In the security and privacy alerts, we're seeing more attacks on operational technology. That's the technology that is used to operate things like, in this case, water treatment systems. There was a small Irish water treatment system that provided water for some towns that was down for 2 days due to a cyber attack. Um, the industrial control system in question is made in Israel, and the attackers were Iran friendly, and so they were retaliating. We're seeing a number of attacks on this particular kind of industrial control system, and the CISA has even put out a warning about it. Um, Congress, of course, continues to ignore the problem because Congress is pretty much dysfunctional these days, whichever party, it doesn't matter. And so, we're continuing to see critical infrastructure go down, taken offline, compromised, and maybe even, people hurt as a result of it. Next, there is an attack going around called the Five Ghoul attack. It impacts 5G, fifth generation phones that have Qualcomm or MediaTek chips in them. Um, so far, they've identified over 700 different models of phones. Apple, Android, doesn't matter. Even USB modems and routers. Total of 24 brands so far. Those 700 models represent. Uh, Researchers discovered 14 vulnerabilities, of which they've disclosed 10 of. I assume that's because the others haven't been patched yet. Um, the attacker does not need to be authenticated, and um, the equipment to pull off the attack only costs a couple grand. The attacker also does not need to know any secrets to get it, so pretty straightforward. Um, Although Qualcomm and MediaTek have released patches, that doesn't mean they've trickled down the supply chain. And also, for phones that are end of life, they'll never be patched. So those will always be vulnerable to these particular attacks. Now, the good news is there's probably not a lot of 5G phones that are end of life by now, but we do see a great variety in terms of the individual phone companies and carriers in terms of how good they are about deploying patches. And of course, most of the phones are employee owned. So at that point, you have another challenge in terms of getting the employees to actually patch their phones. Um, in the reference department, the NIST, National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, has released drafts on protecting from and responding to breaches. These are the NIST Special Publication 800, 1800 series, not the 800 series, 1800 series. Um, and it's open for comments until the middle of January. So if you need some light reading over Christmas break, um, uh, NIST SP 800, 1800, I keep saying that, sorry, 28, which covers protecting from breaches, is a mere 3 volumes and 150 pages. Um, and NIST SP 1829, which covers responding to and recovering from breaches, also 3 volumes, 138 pages. And comments are open until January 15th. In the software and hardware department to check out, Apple's Vision Pro, their augmented reality, virtual reality headset, looks like it's going to come out in January. If you have a spare $3,500 to drop, you can buy one of these puppies. Um, Apparently, there is both a significant learning curve and customization that's required before you can even use the thing. Apple has never released a product that requires customization. We'll see how well Apple does with this because, their whole shtick is about usability. So hopefully they did a good job at it. Um, they also have to train thousands or tens of thousands of Apple employees in their stores in order to be able to sell it. It's pretty easy to sell a phone. People understand phones, especially now, right? You make calls, you surf the web, you send text messages, all good. Is it pretty? Is it cheap? What colors does it come in? Um, that's pretty easy to sell. This thing, on the other hand, not so much. And while it's really cool looking, um, it has an external battery pack, which is a little weird. People think they may have done that to keep the weight of the headset down. So you're kind of tethered to this big old battery, about it looks like about the size of a phone. Um, that's a challenge. It's all a challenge. I never would recommend betting against Apple, but this is a big challenge in their part. So we'll see what they do. Um, For those of you running the pfSense firewall, and we advocate, it's a great firewall. Patch now. There's multiple security vulnerabilities that have been discovered in it that can be chained by an attacker to execute arbitrary commands. So not good. Next in the patching department, and this is going to be one that's going to be with us for a while, unfortunately. Uh, Remember Apache Struts? If you don't, you probably do remember the Equifax breach, which compromised the information of 145 million Americans. That was due to Apache Struts and a missed patch. Now there's Struts 2. Apache rated it 9.8 out of 10, so you got 2/10 of a point still. Could be worse. Pretty bad. Um, and you also remember that almost everybody had to patch their software, including people like Cisco and VMware. The problem is without a software bill of materials, you don't really know what's inside anybody's software, so you don't know what software is vulnerable, what software is not vulnerable, and you're just hoping that people patch it, um, and that you deploy the patches when they come out. So assume hopefully you'll be getting notices in the near future from folks telling you patch now. So I would definitely um, listen to them. Next, the uranium finance crypto hacker is apparently has a novel way of cashing out on the $50 million he got away with. He's buying Magic the Gathering cards. Uh, I have no clue what those are, but apparently he's paying a premium for them, and he's likely going to go sell the cards in pieces and try to wash the money that way. We'll see how that works. Hopefully, it works for him. Do Kwon, the founder of Terra Luna, the bankrupt crypto exchange. You kind of see a theme here. Um, he was on the run for a year until the nice people at Montenegro arrested his butt. They charged him with document forgery, minor crime. And now there's a bit of a fight between South Korea and the U.S. over who's going to get him next. Um, it appears at this point that the U.S. is going to get him next, but we shall see. Um, that should happen after his appeal on being extradited, and that should have happened on Friday. So we should know what's going on here pretty dang soon. Either way, he's going to be in prison for a long, long time, which is perfectly fine with me. Next, the fight over FISA Section 702, the bulk surveillance uh, capability that the FBI loves. Um, there's two bills, both now of which have been withdrawn over infighting. One is called the FISA Reform and Reauthorization Act. It doesn't reform anything. It does reauthorize the act, completely tramples on the concept of privacy, and requires anybody from the corner cafe to local business to go off and secretly spy for the government. That one did not go over well, even in a Republican controlled House, because neither the Republicans nor the Democrats trust the FBI. So, okay, that one sort of was toast. The other one is called Protect Liberty and End Warrantless Surveillance. That requires the FBI to get a warrant. The White House said they don't like that one. Um, at one point, there was a thought that one of those was going to win and it could go to the Senate. Who knows whether it was even going to pass? Um, if it wound up being the second one, Biden was likely to go off and veto it. So they decided to regroup. The National Defense Authorization Act, which is a bit of must-pass legislation, which contains everything but the kitchen sink every year, has a 4 month, just actually 3.5 months extension on Section 702. So maybe Congress can get their act together and figure out what's going on. Um, Apparently, during the committee meeting over those two discussions, the Republicans started fighting with each other and even started cursing. Um, so apparently, nobody likes either of those options, and so we shall see what comes out of that next year. But it looks like it'll remain intact for at least for a couple months. Last week, Senator Wyden outed both Apple and Google for handing over push notification data to the police without a warrant. Push notifications, that data that shows up on your lock screen, like sometimes text messages and other things. Um, Having gotten caught red-handed, Apple said, "Oh, well, we're now going to require a court order or search warrant or something." Um, you know, kind of a dollar short and a day late, but I guess at least it's better than what they were doing before. But they had obviously had to get outed. Up until now, all the cops had to do is ask, and they'd give it. Um, Next, in the education section, we've got how to build a machine learning model in 7 steps. Now, this is not, going to go off and give you all the details, but it does cover the important steps, and it does have links to other pieces of information. So, given that how ubiquitous machine learning and AI is, not bad to learn something about it, which is why I put it in the learn education section. Under breaches, Norton Healthcare, which operates mostly in Kentucky, says it lost the data on about 2.5 million patients, employees, and the families. The hackers were only in there for 2 days, and they're still able to steal data on 2.5 million people. Kind of gives you an idea of the speed at which they can do that. Um, the hackers did not get into the electronic health record system, they said, but they still stole names, birthdays, socials, health and insurance information, medical ID numbers, financial information, government IDs, and even digital signatures. So that's pretty amazing. That's scary. I am sure the lawsuits are already in process. Next, education, which is always a very prolific target because they really don't do a good job of security for a variety of different reasons, and not the least of which is they don't have the money to do it right. Um, they hit the Glendale Unified School District, which is Los Angeles, basically, the Hinsdale School District, New Hampshire, and the Campbell County Schools in Kentucky in just 1 week. Glendale alone has 20,000 students, and the other two districts are much smaller. The hackers have already leaked sensitive data, and they will probably leak more, since I'm guessing these guys are not going to pay the ransom. On the other hand, the Seattle Cancer Center, the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center, lost over 500 gig of data to hackers. Um, but they say that the personal information of our patients and employees is of the utmost importance to them. Um, Apparently didn't stop them from falling victim to a hacking attack, but whatever. Um, one of the local TV news stations, KIRO in Seattle, is reporting that hackers are threatening individual patients, of which apparently there are about 800,000 compromised, saying that if you pay us $50, we will remove your name from the breach, the release of the breach data. $50 times 800,000, you can kind of put the arithmetic together. That's a lot of dough. If they get even some significant chunk of that, that may be, a way for them to monetize all this, and then they'll just sell the rest. On the daily news, Amazon has reported that it spends over $1 billion a year to investigate fraud. That includes they have 15,000 people dedicated to it now. $1 billion, you know, according to Everett Dirksen, is a lot of money. According to me, it's a lot of money. But to Amazon, not so much a lot of money, but still, they don't want to lose $1 billion or more. And my guess is those numbers just going up every year as people find new ways to steal from Amazon. Um, so they are suing one particular gang that they found, the Wreck Gang. we'll see how that goes. But I think what they're saying basically is we have to be responsible for our own enforcement since it doesn't appear that the government is going to do that for us. Next, check fraud is on pace for a record year. Um, assuming you're still using checks, and we recommend that you don't, um, then understand that you are financially responsible for fraudulent checks drawn on your account. As a consumer, you're protected. As a business, you're considered knowledgeable, and you're supposed to put controls in place to protect yourself. Um, there are a number of solutions, many of which involve getting rid of checks and paying things electronically. And the question is, which is the lesser of the evils? There's a lot of benefits to paying electronically, especially with the post office kind of in the toilet these days, taking a long time checks to go across the country. Um, so if you need help with that, then please contact us. We'd be happy to help you with that. Uh, excuse me. Next, two new SEC cyber rules going into effect. One went in Friday, the other goes into effect on Monday. They affect disclosures of breaches and also disclosures of what the company's cybersecurity prevention, breach prevention mechanisms are. This only affects publicly traded companies because it's the SEC that's doing this. But if you do business with a publicly traded company, and I would say most companies do, then you got to get a sense of what their cybersecurity practices are by looking at their annual report. So that's helpful even for privately held companies. And last, this week's news bites, Joe Sullivan, the convicted former Uber CISO, speaks out. I didn't realize he was a former federal prosecutor, so you think he would know that lying to the feds wasn't a good plan. Um, and he makes some good points in his speech, so I invite you to listen to that. Bottom line, he's saying that CISOs, have in many cases been stuck down in the weeds and not dealing with strategic things, not having a seat at the big kids table, the C-level table, and CISOs need to decide what they want to do. Do they want to be gear turners or do they want to be executives? Fair question, and I think there's probably some of each. Um, the FCC has updated the telco breach notification rules. Now it's possible Congress might reject this. That is within their power. But given how dysfunctional Congress is, I wouldn't necessarily put a lot of weight in it, although the Republicans don't like the fact that the FCC is making the telephone companies report breaches quickly. I guess they figure that reporting breaches is bad for business, so I'm not exactly sure. But it could possibly get rolled back at some point in the future. But like I said, with Congress being in the state it is right now, I'm not particularly counting on that. Next, Harry Coker, who is an ex NSA and ex CIA executive, was confirmed by the Senate nearly unanimously as the next national cyber director. Chris Inglis, you may remember, retired actually from government service after like 35 years in February. So this is almost a year later now, and they finally have a new national cyber director. Um, in case you're wondering, it apparently takes a long time to recover from ransomware, and here we have an example of one where 2 months later, this is the court system in Kansas. They're still recovering. They're finally bringing the case management system back online, but that's just one of a whole bunch of systems. So they're going to be working on this for months more. And lastly, and kind of a surprise note because Utah is fairly conservative, the Utah Supreme Court says that suspects do not have to tell cops their password, so make it easy for cops to get into their phone or computer, I guess. This is related to a suspect who was convicted of, I believe, rape. Of course, this does not mean the guy was innocent. It just means that you can't go off and make somebody uh, bear testimony. Um, against themselves, and that the Utah Supreme Court said this was not based on Utah law, but based on their interpretation of the U.S. Constitution. And states have, there haven't been a lot of states that have ruled on this, maybe five or six, and it's kind of, half one way, half the other way. So it'll be interesting to see if this winds up making it to the Supremes at some point in time. It might, although the Supremes seem to be pretty good at dodging hairy questions, and this certainly falls into the category of a hairy question. So we shall see if it makes it up to the Supremes and whether they even choose to take it if it does. Um, with that, if you need help, please contact us. And until next time, stay safe.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized businesses. They include everything needed to secure your business and meet compliance requirements. Visit our website at turnkeycybersecurityandprivacysolutions.com to learn more.